Today we will be looking at the civilizations of the Mesopotamia, Tigris, and Euphrates River Valley. The Mesopotamia, Tigris, and Euphrates river valleys are located near the Mediterranean Sea and the Persian Gulf in southwest Asia. Around these two rivers there is a fertile crescent, but beyond this crescent there are deserts and mountains. The Fertile Crescent is very important to these river valleys because agriculture is a crucial part of their economy. Many farming villages appeared along these rivers. The rivers would flood once a year, leaving behind silt, making the soil fertile and good for farming. The Sumerians were the first settlers in this area. Some disadvantages they faced were they had limited natural resources, no natural barriers, and floodings were common from the rivers. The people would often build dams to help hold back the flood water. They started building irrigation canals to carry water to their fields. They often made houses of mud because they didn't have any other resources, and they built mud walls around villages for protection. People often got around on foot, by donkey, by golf boat, rafts, carts, or river boats. This is also how they transported their goods for trade. In this society, men were more powerful than women, but women could own property and had rights, and they could maintain a house. Some upper-class women learned to read and write, and they had more rights than women in later civilizations. The social class went from kings and nobles and some priests first, merchants and artisans second, and peasants and slaves were last. The men controlled the political and religious life of their family. They had a food surplus, making larger families possible, so women needed to stay at home. Rich men could have several wives. Regular men could take a second wife if the first didn't bear children. The daughter's husband was chosen by the family. These river valleys established a city-state government. Each city had its own government, rulers, patron gods, and would function like an independent country. They had powerful priests that had much of the power and acted as the go-between gods. In the center of every city, there was a ziggurat, which is a massive pyramid-shaped structure that was built to make gods happy. Later in the civilization, Hammurabi's Code was introduced. It was the first system of written laws. An example of one is an eye for an eye. And then later, military commanders became the rulers, and their ruling got passed down to their relatives, making a dynasty. Hammurabi's Code was the first system of written laws, and it was a guideline for laws and other civilizations. People in the Tigris and Euphrates River Valley believed in polytheism, which is the belief of many gods. They believed that gods controlled various forces of nature. Enlil, which is the god of storm and air, was one of the most powerful, and a demon known as Ugolo protected humans from evil demons that caused disease, misfortune, and misery. They believed gods did many of the same things humans did, as well as being immortal and all-powerful. The ziggurats were built to make gods happy, and they offered sacrifices of animals, food, and wine here. They believed that dead souls went to the land of no return, which is a place between Earth's crust and the ancient sea. It's their version of hell, and each city had a patron god. The education in this society was aimed to train priests. They were taught basic reading, writing, religion, law, medicine, and astrology. Most of the art was based on their gods, kings, and jewelry. The people used art to interpret their meaning on earth. They believed that they were here to serve their gods, hence the reason most of their art was based off their religion and of gods. They made buildings that looked like pyramids, arches, columns, and ramps. They studied astronomy, chemistry, and medicine. They made many advancements in arithmetic and geography. Thales was known as the first philosopher here. They had schools, but they were mainly devoted to priests. They created the first system of writing. They made a number system in the base of 60, and they had modern units of measuring time. The people here had many rituals and ceremonies. Their rituals were on things they thought were an important part of life. Most of these ceremonies were based around birth and marriage. The people here made many technological advancements. They created one of the first systems of writing called cuneiform. They invented the wheel, sail, and plow. They were the first to use bronze. They had a lunar calendar. They had the first system of written law codes, and they used metal tools and weapons. Their most important technological advancement has to be their creation of writing, or cuneiform. This is so important because it was the first society to actually document their history. It was the first hard facts we had, and this is how they wrote their law of codes. There were many jobs in Mesopotamia, but the most common jobs were growing crops and raising livestock. But they could also be weavers, potters, shoemakers, and fishermen. Farming was the basis of their economy. They grew grains, vegetables, domesticated sheep, goats, cow, oxen, and donkey. They traded with other civilizations as well. They were known to trade with Egyptians in the Indus Valley. They had a traditional economy. Barley was used as a type of payment, and they had little to offer in trade because of the lack of natural resources. All they really had was their crops. The rivers made trade easier. It connected them to more places and helped them get their goods to different areas. Their goods were transported through rafts and river boats. The people of Mesopotamia would often trade their crops for natural resources from other areas. The soldiers in Mesopotamia used many weapons such as daggers, shields, spears, maces, and bow and arrows. Overall, Mesopotamia, Tigris, and Euphrates River Valley were located in the Fertile Crescent. Sumerians were the first settlers. Men were more powerful than women. Kings and nobles and some priests were at the top of the social classes. They established a city-state government and had the first system of written laws. They believed in many gods. Education was aimed to train priests. They created the first system of writing called cuneiform, and most jobs were in farming, and they traded with Egyptians in the Indus Valley. A fun fact, Mesopotamia means land between the rivers. In a nutshell, that's the Mesopotamia, Tigris, and Euphrates River Valley civilizations.